Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video with me, the Drew Gamer. Today is a very special video because this is the first time I had ever received a review code for a game, and it's for one of my all-time favorite game series, Samurai Warriors. I'm a huge Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors fan, Warriors Orochi fan. Anything, Warriors related, I'm usually into it. So, I was given a code for Samurai Warriors 5, which is coming out on Tuesday, I believe. So, if you don't know what the Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors series is, it's developed by Koei Tecmo, so I really appreciate them giving me the code to do this. And the series, unlike Dynasty Warriors, which is set in China during the Three Kingdoms era, Samurai Warriors is set during the Sengoku period of Japan, and it usually covers the span of it, sort of a little bit before it, and then going all the way to the end of it, which ends with the victory of being unified by Ieyasu Tokugawa, which led into the shogunate, which carried on up until modern day sort of thing. So this game is very much focused around Nobunaga and his rise from power to when he was about to unify Japan. But then one of his retainers, Mitsuhide Akechi, came in and he killed him because they were really close, and then eventually they just sort of split off, and Nobunaga started becoming more and more sort of powerful and more corrupted, and Mitsuhide didn't like it. He thought it was too chaotic for the land sort of thing, so he eventually killed him. So that's what the story is based on for this. It was very similar in Samurai Warriors 1, where it did a big focus on the Honoji incident, which is what it's referred to in the games and stuff. But this is very, very much just focused on them, because Samurai Warriors always sort of had other heroes from that time period, or the warriors from the time period that fit in with it. But this does as well, but it's primarily focused on Nobunaga and Mitsuhide as the main two characters for the game. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. That was just a quick introduction to it, and what we're going to be talking about. Well, first of all, I'm just going to mention the game modes that are in the game. So we have Muso mode, which is the story mode for the game. That's usually the same throughout the series. It's either story mode or Muso mode. It's usually what it's called. And there we go through either Nobunaga's story or Mitsuhide's story. But in order to get Mitsuhide's story, you need to complete the first two chapters of Nobunaga's. So there's quite a few missions that you need to do with Nobunaga first. Probably about 7, I think. And then on top of that, you unlock missions that are within that time period. So like, for instance, there's a level where you play as Nobunaga, but then Ieyasu goes off and he does something else. One of the other characters goes off and he's doing something else in that time period. Oh, sorry. Typical Windows update coming through. And then you play that, which was a very important point in that history, but because it's more focused on Nobunaga, they wanted to keep the story about him as the main focus, with other stuff happening as well. And then once you've finished a level in the story mode, you unlock free mode, which is another variation of things that have been in the series before, where you can go into any character, any level, or any character's story in the previous installments, and you can play it with anyone you want. So you'll just go in there and you can play it as any character you want, and the story unfolds the same, but you're just playing it with whoever you want, and you can level up, gather stuff, and everything. So those are the two sort of main things that are returning. And then we have a new mode called Citadel mode, and this is interesting because you get a castle sort of feature, and it upgrades as you progress the story. But within the Citadel mode, you can do defense missions where you protect different gates and stuff with 2 characters. And by doing that, you earn materials that you can then use to upgrade other aspects of your citadel, basically. And I'll go into those in a second. But it's really interesting how they did it. And then you can pick 2 characters whoever you want. And there's another interesting mechanic with that as well that I really like. So either in Muso mode or in Citadel mode, before you select March and then select the battle you want to do and select your characters, you will see there's Dojo which gives you officer training, lets you give character skills, lets you level them up by giving like stacked up experience that you can get after each battle. And you can increase their weapon rank, which I believe goes from F to probably S. I haven't got anyone to max rank yet from what I've played. But I'm really interested to see what that does. Usually unlock an ultimate skill, which again we'll get to once we get to the gameplay. And then you can look at character info and you can change your equipment and stuff in that. And then you have the blacksmith, which lets you upgrade weapons, dismantle them, the parts, craft them. And then we have the shop where you can purchase accessories. You can purchase weapons in there as well if you want to. You can purchase skills and materials. You can also sell your skill gems and sell materials too. Then you have the stables, which you can purchase your horse. You can do skill drills, which will give them abilities. Equestrian drills, which I believe probably increases their level. You can sell them. You can look at their information with mount information. And all of those are also upgradable within your citadel. So you can use the materials that you get and you upgrade them, and you can buy better horses, you can buy better weapons or items or materials, or you can level up your characters more, or you can increase their rank in the weapons more by doing that. So it's very interesting. I do like that. And then this is an interesting mechanic. This is usually kind of in like the Empires games for Dynasty Warriors and Cyber Warriors, where there's like you build up a relationship with a character, and then if it's someone that they knew within the history of that time period, they will have a special cutscene with it. So for instance, if you have Nobunaga and Mitsuhide, you can use them a few times in Citadel mode, and their relationship will go from 0 to 100. And then once they've got to the 100, that you can go to the Hermit's Retreat and you can watch a special cutscene between them, which is really cool. I really like that. I only did it once with Hanzo and a new character that I've forgotten the name of right now. But they were both, Hanzo and this new character were both eager ninjas. And Hanzo was once the leader, and now this new guy's the leader, and there's an interesting interaction between them, because I didn't know that from history. And then we have the Vault, which is on the main menu, which gives you general information about your save file. So it can give you how many kills you've had, how long you've played it, all, you know, just general information. But you can also look at biographies of the characters, objectives from missions, events that you've unlocked from the game, and you can listen to the music in the music theater, which is really cool. So there's a couple of modes in there. I really like the Citadel mode. It's just a nice little extra mode, but the main focus is the story mode, and then it's split into Nobunaga or Mitsuhide's story. So we're going to go into the gameplay now. And with the gameplay, it's your typical Warriors game. So if you've ever seen Dynasty Warriors, then you know that they're quite repetitive. And you go in there and you have your basic combos, which is, as I play on PlayStation, it's you press square and you'll perform a basic string of attacks. During specific points within the string, you can press triangle, which will then do a charge attack, and sometimes the charge attacks have extra charge attacks after that. So you play like square, 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 triangle, 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 and they'll do their charge for, basically. There's also hyper attack, so when you press in the triangle button, you'll do like a speeding attack, which you can't usually do against generals. You'll sort of get pushed back, but you can really go through and attack the troopers there, and that's been kind of toned down from Cyber Warriors 4, because in Cyber Warriors 4 it was kind of intense because you went really fast, and some characters do in this, but it seems better. And then you can combo into basic combos as well, so you can keep pressing triangle and then you'll stop and you can press square and you can go into your combo and do some really interesting different moves, which is really cool. So the idea is that you go into a mission and you have different objectives that you have to fulfill. They'll pop up on the screen and it'll say, oh, you need to kill this general in this amount of time, or you need to escort the supply captain over here to make sure supply are coming in, or you need to escort this engineer and they'll start a fire attack, or and sometimes, which I really like, is that depending on who you pick, because usually on certain story missions, you will be given specific characters to play as. like you'll just be set, like you'll start a mission, it'll say, oh, you can only play as Nobunaga or Nobunaga and Mitsuhide. But some missions you get to choose out of a variety of characters that were there during that time. And when you do that, you can get objectives that are only specific to that character. So they'll be like, oh, Hideyoshi needs to kill this number of enemies here because he did something like that in history and he made a castle, for instance. So I really like that. That's interesting. There's a new set of moves called ultimate skills or ultimate attacks, and what they do is they can give you a quick boost in your attack, defense, speed. You can boost your Muso, which we'll get into in a second. You can also use them to sort of get past different types of troops. So there's not just like basic infantry and generals that you have to fight. You also have to fight shield bearers or archers or cannoneers and stuff like that. So you have to use these ultimate skills to sort of bypass them, but they also make it really interesting because it gives characters special skills to use to then add a new element to the gameplay. You also have a Muso, which is usually like a special attack where you press circle and you'll do like a combo, and then it ends in a sort of like a finisher move, which is really cool. If you press R2, you go into rage mode once the bar is filled, and then once that's done, you basically go into a mode where you're super powerful. You'll move faster, you'll do more damage and stuff. And if you have a Muso doing that, you'll do a Muso Frenzy, where you'll do an even better sort of version of the finisher of your moveset, which is really cool. What else have we got? We've got sort of a morale gauge in it as well. So you'll see on the map there's different sections where it's blue, which is more towards you, and then there's more red sections, which is more towards your enemy. And if you kill the drummers within those areas, it sort of lowers the enemy's morale, and you have to take out the drummers to lower the morale so that you're able to do more damage to the enemies, which is a nice feature. That's usually typically in Empire's games, so it's nice to have it here. What have we got? So I'm still talking a bit fast because I'm trying to make sure that I cover everything that I've got noted down, so you'll probably see me keep looking down. But so within Samurai Warriors, there are 27 characters. 20 of these characters are returning from previous games, because Samurai Warriors has been going around since the PS2 days, and a lot of the characters from all over the time period. And because this is more focused on the Honoji incident and the build-up to that, they've narrowed it down to 27 characters total. So there's 20 returning characters. A lot of characters were cut from Samurai Warriors 4. There's 7 new characters in the game, and Nobunaga and Mitsuhide have older variants of them too. So you'll see them older within the story. I don't know if anyone else does, but I know specifically that Nobunaga and Mitsuhide do. You'll see them older, and they kind of look more like how they did previously in other iterations. Because every old character that's returned, whether they came in Samurai Wars 1, 2, 3, or 4, they don't look like they used to. So it's interesting. I'll do some comparisons so you can see it as well. What else have we got? There's also 10 unique officers that are part of the story, but usually what the Samurai Warriors would do is they would make them what they called a unique NPC. So they would have a unique design and stand out from the rest of the generals, but they wouldn't have their own moveset, they wouldn't be playable. But these ones are playable for some reason, and they're called supporting characters in this. So you can play as them as well, but they won't have unique moves, which is part of the movesets of the weapons, which I'll get into in a second. So every character in the game has at least one preferred weapon. Nobunaga and Mitsuhide might have 2, I believe, because I've got 2 for Nobunaga right now. And the preferred weapon is like basically what their default weapon is, and they'll get a unique action with it. They'll get a unique move, sort of a unique move with it. But if, so for instance, Nobunaga has the Odachi on, and he has a unique move with it, and then Mitsuhide equips the Odachi, he won't have that same move that Nobunaga gets. He'll just have generic moves, but then Mitsuhide has like a special with his katana. So it's cool that they've done that. But I'll get to some more information with that. There's 15 weapon types in the game, so you can equip any weapon, and every weapon has a moveset rather than the characters having a moveset. But then characters will have a special action, like I said, like the preferred weapon will give them a different move. But there's 15 to choose from, and just to list, there's an Odachi, there's a katana, there's a cannon, there's like paper charms that fly around you, which are really cool. There's a drum, there's gauntlets, there's a bow, spear, naginata, great spear. I'm missing a few. I think there's like a katana and a gun. There's a hammer. So there's quite a few to choose from, and some characters will share their preferred weapon with other characters, but they'll get different moves depending on it. Like they'll get a different unique move. So like I said, you have the objectives in the missions, which are good, and you can just collect weapons, items, scrolls, gold experience as you're going around playing the missions and stuff. And you get a score depending on, like, once you get a big KO count sort of thing, and then the idea is you get a huge KO count. So it's kind of 1 versus 1,000. But I found that with this one, there is, the enemies don't just stand there, because in a lot of the older Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors games, the enemies did come and attack you, and they do quite a lot of damage, and it made them really hard. But as it got over the years, they wanted more enemies on screen. The enemies just kind of stood there, apart from generals. But the troops actually seem to be doing some damage in this one, which I really appreciate. So I do like that they've done that and brought that sort of element back. Let's see. So I'm going to go into some positives for the game. The art style, I absolutely love the art style. Like the Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors has always looked sort of the same. Like it's had the same sort of aesthetic for quite a while. More so, Samurai Warriors, sorry, was kind of more dark than some of the later iterations in the series. But Samurai Warriors 2, 3, and 4 always had sort of a similar aesthetic appearance-wise, but with this, they've developed it into like a cel-shaded style, and it looks beautiful. I absolutely love the visuals of the game, and it's made the like when they do like the move sets with all the moves and on the weapons and stuff, like they're just incredible. They're very well done. They're all updated and they're all new. Even for returning weapon, I think the only returning weapon, like properly returning weapon for a character, is the Kusarigama, which is a sickle on the end of a chain with like a mace on the other end, or a weight on the other end, and that was given to Hanzo Hattori before, and then it's been brought back for the new leader of the Ninja Clan, and it's fantastic. It's got a new moveset to it, so they've done a really good job implementing the moves and the way that the effects that are on them. Like it's very traditional, like when you see like animes or when you see cartoons or animations in games, they always have like sort of like the sweeping effects and stuff, and it just looks stunning. I absolutely love how the visuals look. They have sort of anime style animations going on as well. Like it'll show like a screen where it freezes, and it'll show like a drawn version of the character, and like they'll do all these cool effects on it and stuff. Let's see. So in a lot of the previous games in Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, when you get a weapon, you'd start off with a basic version of the weapon, and then you'd get like each character would have 5, like say a max of 5 or 6 weapon designs, and each one would be more powerful. Now that feature was taken out of Samurai Warriors 3. It was in 1 and 2, but it wasn't in 3, where they'd just keep the same design weapon, and then they'd have like one rare weapon. And then the same in Samurai Warriors 4, they'd have like one design weapon, and then you could get a rare weapon. But in this, they've gone back to that formula where there's a basic version of the weapon, and then each character has. I don't know how many there are. Maybe there's probably like 2 or 3 or 4. There's like different designs for the weapons and stuff, and they're more powerful. And I always really liked that feature, and it felt like there was more progression when you're going through the story and you find these weapons, and you're like, oh, this character now has this weapon, and it's a better version of that one. So it's like I always really like that. But I only found so far, because it seems like it's more of a difficulty thing. I've only found level 2 variants of the weapons. I haven't found any, but sort of like level 3s or anything. Now the story, this is like a huge positive for me, is it feels more fleshed out, because a lot of the time, especially in the older Samurai Warriors games, each character would have their own story mode, and then each character would have 5 or 6 missions within their story, so they could only fit so much into it. But because this is heavily focused on that whole time period of Nobunaga rising to power till his death, they've really focused down on the levels that are in it and the stages and the battles, and it'll have like smaller battles that you didn't know about. So for instance, one of Nobunaga's biggest victories was the Battle of Okehazama, where the warlord Yoshimoto Imagawa was he was really powerful at the time, and Nobunaga took him on and killed him, and that's usually where Samurai Warriors starts, and it would start with Okehazama, but there's so many battles before that that led up to Nobunaga taking out Yoshimoto, and those are in this game, which is really cool. And I love how like fleshed out it makes it, because on top of that, it gives characters that didn't have as much screen time in the previous games, or much development as in previous games, any returning character, it's given them more of the limelight, because they're very focused, and you say, oh well, this character did this in that point, I didn't know that, because before they only had this battle. It didn't just go from like point A and then like 10 years later there was battle 2. It's going over a lot of what's happened to him during that period, and I really appreciate that. And like I said, that like many of the characters work up, but I don't see that as a negative, because they have really boosted how the characters play out. It's giving them more focus, like I mentioned. The soundtrack is beautiful. It's got very traditional music going on. That's kind of something that they've done in sort of the more recent Samurai Warriors, and I think I've heard a couple of remixes from the older games, because that's what Samurai Warriors has always done as well. It's had remixes of levels, and it's always had that sort of same soundtrack on the level, but just remixed each game. And I think I've heard a couple of them. I need to go through and just make sure that like that is the case. And then the levels themselves look absolutely beautiful with the cel shaded style. I really love the aesthetic and like the visual appearance of the game. And it runs, I don't know if it runs at 60 FPS or not, but it looks really smooth in all the actions, especially when you're doing like a hyper attack and stuff. It doesn't slow down. I haven't experienced any slowdown with like having too many enemies on the screen, which a lot of the previous installments suffered from. There was just too many enemies loading on the screen, and it could affect the frame rate, but I haven't had any issues like that. I haven't actually had any glitches or anything, which is fantastic. So I really enjoy the gameplay aspect of it. So now, how much time have I got? Okay. So now is, I want to make sure that you have all the information, and this is something that really, really bothers me. It's not just specific to Samurai Warriors 5, this has been an issue in Dynasty Warriors games. But every iteration of Samurai Warriors, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then and Spirit of the Sanada, and there's been other iterations where they've introduced new characters and stuff. They always had unique weapons. Every character had a unique weapon, and I'm going to show you some examples as well. Like I've got Samurai Warriors 2, and I can show you some examples of that. But in Samurai Warriors 5, they've gone the Dynasty Warriors route, where they've cloned characters, and by that I mean, for instance, in Samurai Warriors 1 through 4, Nobunaga had a sort of a longsword with glowing demon energy around it, because he was known as the Demon King, and it had like dark energy surrounding it. Now he's got an Odachi, but also Kenshin, who is in the game, also has the Odachi, and they have the exact same moveset because it's on the weapon, it's not on the character. So, and then for instance, Tadakatsu Honda, Toshiya Maeda, and Shingen Takeda all have the Great Spear moveset. And it's just the exact same moveset, and it's like, and because they cut a lot of the characters out, it's like, well, why did you do that? I don't quite understand why they cut so many of them. I don't expect them to sort of bring them back, but they showed with the Kusarigama, the sickle side thing, that they could have taken an old moveset and updated it into the modern style so it would fit in. I want every character to be unique, because it's like, well, if Tadakatsu is using the Great Spear, it doesn't really give me a reason to use Toshie or Shingen, because I'm like, okay, well, Tadakatsu's done that. I want to be able to use it, and especially because Toshie Maeda, and I'll put some great gameplay up of him, some Samurai Warriors too. He was one of my favorite characters because he had a serrated blade and he had 2 spears, and it was just unique and it made it interesting. And I wish they would have done that. I wish they would have made every character unique, especially considering like Samurai Warriors 4 had like 40 plus characters, I think, and they've taken a lot of them out, left 20 of the originals and added 7 more, and like a lot of them, only a couple characters have a preferred weapon that isn't shared with anyone else, and because obviously there's 15 weapons and 27 characters. And what else? The twin swords, I didn't understand. I don't know if there's going to be a patch. I doubt it, like a day 1 patch, but like I said with the movesets, there's always like you press square, 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 square. For example, on a normal moveset, as they called it back in the day, it'd be a chain of square attacks, and then you'd randomly in intervals press triangle to do charges at different points. And I'll put that up on the screen so you can see that. But then with the twin swords moveset, the first 3 charge attacks are completely unique and they're really cool. They look great. But then 4 through 9 is the exact same move, and I don't understand why. It's just like, it's like this red slash, like cross slash sort of thing, and it's just exactly the same move over and over again, and usually that every one is unique, and it just doesn't make any sense. Playable characters share movesets with generic officers, which that shouldn't be a case. Like, generic officers should just have their own movesets, and player characters should have their own unique movesets. It should not be tied to just the weapon. And that's something that Dynasty Warriors needs to fix as well, but we're not here to talk about Dynasty Warriors, we're talking about Samurai Warriors. And it just, yeah, it boggles me that they, especially considering every other iteration of the game, everyone was unique. And now they've taken that back, and the characters are just all sharing movesets, and it's just, there's no need for them to share movesets, especially with 27 characters. It does take a while to make the movesets, and the movesets are fantastic, apart from the twin swords, which I made reference to a minute ago. It just seems like a wasted opportunity, and I know that they're probably going to introduce new weapons as DLC, and I wish they wouldn't. I wish they would have put in the movesets to begin with, so it makes me think, oh wow, I'm going to play as this character, I want to be able to use this character with this moveset and see how they play. And now the only difference is that they'll have like 1 unique attack, they'll have a different Muso finisher and a Muso frenzy, and they'll have a different, they might learn an ultimate attack, and that's it. That's the only difference between them. But they'll still have the same weapon, and then anyone can equip that weapon as well. So it doesn't make the characters feel unique to me. The movesets, like I said, the animations are flawless, they're fantastic, but that's a big turning point for me, because I don't want it to go the way that Dynasty Warriors went with that sort of thing. For some reason, I didn't get this, was like, I didn't realize this at first, but skill points are stacked, and they're not stacked per character, they're stacked for everyone. So I was giving skill points to Nobunaga and going over to Mitsuhide and going like, oh, why can't I buy him any skills? I've used them a lot. Well, it's because I thought that that's my own fault, but it's a negative for me, because it's like, well, every character should have their own skill points to give them. They shouldn't have like an overall total that you can then divide between every character. Let's see. So one of the big things is like the for me is that the way Samurai 1 did it, yeah, the story wasn't as focused, but it did have a big focus on the Honoji incident. But it also included battles between big rivaling clans at that time as well. And I don't know, because I didn't get too far into the story, so this could just be wrong. But there's a big battle between the Kenshin Uesugi and Shingen Takeda called the Battle of Koei Nakajima, and they do that quite a lot. They had that battle quite a few times. And it's I don't know if it's in the game, but Shingen and Kenshin are playable in the game. But there isn't a story mode for Shingen and Kenshin, but they were huge in that time period. But they are relevant to some of Nobunaga's campaign and stuff, so that's why they're there. And it feels like certain characters, they're there because they had to be there. Like I've done a few missions where Kenshin has been there, but no one's interacted with him, not even Shingen. And I'm not sure if it's because I'm before where they formed their rivalry, but I don't think it is. I think it's around the time when their rivalry was. And Shingen and Kenshin just didn't interact with each other at all within the mission, but then there was like Nobunaga interacting with other people at the time as well, and it's just kind of interesting that they've done that. Hey everyone, I'm just popping in for a quick note on what I was saying just then. Basically, where I was during the story, there was a mission that involved Ieyasu, Shingen, and Kenshin. And in that stage, Shingen and Kenshin did not interact in it, which was weird because it was during the time that they would have had a huge rivalry. But there is a level with Mitsuhide's story where you do basically Koei Nakajima, where you battle Shingen with Kenshin and Mitsuhide helps him out. But there's also, which is interesting, is that there is levels in the sort of subpath that are not part of the main story, but so there's the battle of Mikatakahara, which is really hard to say, which is Ieyasu versus Shingen, but then you can also do that from Shingen's side, which I thought was really cool. But I still think that even though it was focused on the Oda and the Akechi, they needed to have the other stories in there, such as like the Takeda and the Uesugi and the Hojo, because the Hojo are absent, but they were still a big part of that time period, and they needed their own story and expanded on that, because that would have been really cool. But they could end up doing that in an expansion. A lot of the missions are just Mitsuhide and Nobunaga. Like, you'll go into it and you'll just start with Mitsuhide and Nobunaga, which is fine because that's kind of how it was in the older games, where you'd select, oh, I want to do Nobunaga's story, and then you do 5 missions with Nobunaga. But because they've done a big focus on making sure that the characters are all there to be relevant within the story, sort of thing, you should have been able to pick multiple characters from the start rather than just being forced to use Nobunaga for this battle, and you don't get to use anyone else for like 3 or 4 battles, which is interesting. That's pretty much my only negative, though. It's like the biggest. The others are just kind of like minor things, but the biggest thing I don't like is the weapons and the fact that they are cloned characters, because they shouldn't be cloned characters. Every move should be unique with a weapon, and even if a character has a spear, then they can give another character a spear, but they could just make it a completely different moveset. They didn't have to make them cloned, because it's just like I said, the weapon itself has the moveset. It's not the character, and it should be the character themselves who has the moveset, because even though like, for instance, Nobunaga has been around since Samurai 1, and his moveset got updated in Samurai 2 a little bit, it's kind of remained the same from 2 through 4. So it was feeling quite dated. So it's cool that they've updated it with new moves and stuff, but they could have just made his weapon again in Samurai 5 and just made it fit with the aesthetic of the game. Same with Mitsuhide. He's had his moveset changed quite a few times, though. Like Kenshin had a 7-branch sword, that's gone. Now he's got an Odachi like Nobunaga, and it's just the same moveset between the two. And I just don't agree with that, and I wish they wouldn't do it to make you eventually get weapons with them, so to download as DLC, because I don't agree with that. But overall, I'm going to do some quick final thoughts. I absolutely love the aesthetic of the game. The characters, how they interact is fantastic. There's a lot more depth to the story. There's a lot of replayability from when you're doing objectives within missions. There is a lot of weapons to collect as well, so if you do a lot of collecting, or if you just want to learn about the history, it's not obviously like super historically accurate, but it gives you an idea of what happened during that time period. And then, other than that, it's just my main concern is the weapons, and I don't want them to just be constantly like, oh well, we're going to clone everyone, we're just going to start slowly decloning everyone with DLC, because that's not the way to do it. They should have just all been unique in the first place, like they always have been. So hopefully, I doubt they'd like patch the weapons in or anything. But sorry, I'm gonna sneeze. But yeah, I just wish that every character was unique with their own weapon, within the story. Even if they like changed their weapon from what it was originally, so that they fit differently and they play differently, that's fine. Like, characters have changed weapons before. Masamune Date in Samurai 1 had 2 wooden swords, and then in Samurai 2 onwards he had a sword and 2 pistols. And then some other character, Oichi's changed her weapon before, where she had a cup and ball basically, and then once she got to Samurai 3 she was given these like big hoops, these big spiked rings. So I wish they'd just given characters their own unique moveset. And I think that's my only negative of the game. I would recommend playing it because, I mean, I'm a huge history buff. I love lore, I love mythology, I love history. So I would always recommend it, even if you feel like the game is a bit repetitive and stuff. Like, it's just fun to go through the battlefields and see the interactions between characters, and just having. It's just, I always enjoyed it, and just learning about the history of the time. It was always fascinating to me. And yeah, that's going to be the end of my review, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again to Koei for letting me have a review code for this. I'm really excited to play more of it because I love the series, and if they want to fix the weapons, then please do. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.